Welcome to Grease Garage, and today we show you how to make this fully sick dump pipe. But if you've got the dump pipe there, then what are these things? No, they're I'll explain those later. That's a bit of payback right there. I mean, surely they can't stay. Imagine if you hit someone. They might get burnt. What are you talking about? I mean, they could. Let's get on with the episode. So this is what we're starting with. A 3-inch, 9-degree stainless steel bend, and my goal for today is to get the dump out of that engine bay as soon as possible without getting close to anything important. This, of course, means the brake lines and the water lines. Now, the old bandsaw is a great machine, but it has its limitations, and cutting a 90-degree bend is very awkward. So, by chopping and tacking on a straight piece of pipe to a 90 makes getting that perfect cut a lot easier. So, I gotta be honest, I had to actually redo this dump a couple of times because I didn't get it right the first time. I was completely off. So as you can see, I'll chuck it back in there, have a look. Yep, Reese, you got that wrong. Let's do it again. And it's just one of these things. You just gotta keep going until you know you got it right. And when you actually look at the space restrictions I have, this is why I'm taking my time and trying to get this absolutely right, because legit, 3-inch is quite a big pipe, and getting it in this tight little place where only 2.5-inch was before we even did the crossover pipe, it makes it very hard to fit everything in, but I think we're doing a good job. So just like that, this dump pipe is now fully designed and is ready to be welded up. We are going to lay some nice beads on this, and I'm going to show you guys how to do it, because stainless steel is a great metal, and if you know the basics, you can get amazing welds with very little effort. So let's get on to that and make this thing pretty so we can hear it hit the streets of Perth. So the best place to start with any stainless steel work is you want to make sure that it's fitting as close as possible. As you can see here, it is super tight, there is no gaps, and that is just how you want it. So prep is number one, and if you take your time getting it right like this, you are going to smash out some insane welds. So the next thing I like to do is get a vise and make sure that stainless steel is not going to move while you're welding. You want to be in a comfortable position as well when you're doing it, and you want your TIG end as sharp as possible to a point so you get a really nice concentrated bead. Another thing I like to mention is I'm using low amps and I'm not using any filler rod for this. If you want to use filler rod, I would highly suggest that you're purging inside the pipe as well, otherwise you're going to get build up inside the pipe. But as you can see, you just move nice and slowly in a steady pace and you're going to bang out some awesome welds. And it does take practice, but I promise you guys, it is not hard. This is really simple stuff, and you can make them look amazing. So the dump is in, looking glorious where it's sitting, but it is not finished. We need to weld some bungs on there because Josh is a crazy man, and I don't want him to blow this up. So I've recommended that he puts in a wideband sensor. So we need to weld a bung in to get this sensor in so Josh can then check out his air fuel ratios and make sure he's not running too lean, because the last thing I want to hear is he's melted a piston. It's probably going to happen. Josh, you know it's going to happen. What we got to do is we need to get a perfect position to get this sensor in, and a couple of things we need to talk about before we do that. Now, you can, and you probably have seen that people put these on the very first bend after the turbo. And look, the only problem with that is it puts a lot of heat on this sensor and sometimes can burn them out. I mean, these do get hot anyway when they're in operation, but apparently that's the thing, they get too hot and you can wreck your sensor. Probably vibrations don't help it too much either. What is recommended is a certain distance away from the back of your turbo, so check out whatever your installation things. I think it's like 300 mil from the back of the turbo flange. So we're probably going to be around that, probably around 450. And another rule is you don't want to put it on the pipe like that. Any moisture that hits this little thing, any moisture that hits this sensor, it's going to be a bad day for the sensor. Also, another thing is forward drive, he gets bogged and he breaks this off or bends it, knocks it. Not a good thing. So we want to keep it up high, and recommended is about a 15-degree angle from the top, or maybe a 30 degree, so around there. So now we've got that all covered, time to find a place to put this, drill it out, weld it up. Let's get to it. And before I have to rip this dump out, let's take a second to actually have a look at it and just enjoy the goodness of that turbo barrel and that dump. It really does look fantastic. So next thing I had to do was locate where I can actually get some O2 sensors and mark them on the dump pipe. And I've taken it out and I've put it on the vice bench, ready to drill and weld. It's pretty obvious to see that I do love welding with stainless steel. Having a TIG, chucking on a nice weld, and getting to see those results straight away is a really good feeling, and I love how it turns out. As you can see, what I used was a small drill, and I worked my way up to get the correct hole for the bung. I then chucked the bung into the lathe, and I've set it into that stainless steel pipe nicely, put a plug on top of it, and then welded it up. And the results, as you can see, they came out pretty good. So I'm happy with that now, and we're going to slap that back in the car and see if the O2 sensors fit up. So now that we've got that other dump finally done, it's time to put the upriser, the dominator, the wrecker of worlds. In other words, probably a yellow sticker. But that's what we're doing next. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my little level here. I'm just going to find a nice flat bit. And that is saying, yeah, okay, so that's flat. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to use the level to try and get this as straight as possible. That's the wrong way. Yeah. Okay, easier said than done. Oh, there we go. Ah! Anyway, that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the level to try and get this straight. Bear with me. So we've talked about this for the whole season, putting the exhaust out of the bonnet, and this is the beginnings of it. So this is legit just for a bit of fun. On the road, we will be using the normal dump pipe, but this is just for out on the forward drive track, or heaven forbid, at a car show or whatever, and just shooting some flames and just showing off. So now that we got that leveled, I've marked it, it's time to put some tacks onto that, and then come back and double check how we went. Now, has anyone ever had a mate change their mind midway through a build? Well, Joshy messaged me and says, "Hey Reese, could you possibly put that screamer pipe into that freshly new dump pipe that you made?" No, Josh, no. So just to stitch him up a little bit, I'm going plus ultra on this dump pipe and this screamer pipe, and I am putting them sky high right up, and I'm going to take a photo. I'm going to send it to Joshy, so I hope he appreciates it, because it's staying that way. Sorry, Josh. So now that we've got the fantastic thumbnail, it's time to move on to something pretty important. Obviously the car needs to steer, and at the moment we don't have any steering pump. So the Astra steering pump is what we're going to be using, and we're going to stick it right in this corner. So we're going to modify the original Holden Astra bracket to fit in that corner. So let's get to that. So the idea of this is to make this look factory, and that's the plan. So what we're going to do is going to use that standard Astra steering pump bracket, and we are going to make it work with the Mitsubishi. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get a little bit of tube. I didn't have one on hand, so that means I've got to make one. So I've grabbed the bolt, chucked it in the lathe, and we're going to make the perfect size tube for the job. Pretty simple. Lathe it down, get it right, drill a hole, chuck it in the bandsaw, and then cut it to size. Once that's all done, I then get the welder ready, and we weld it in and then test fit it for the next piece. So with this bracket, I really wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to do this whole thing without putting any bog and just make it a perfect metal bracket, so I know it was nice and reliable. So what I've done is I've got some square metal tubing, and I've cut it down to size, and I've stuck it where it's going to make it a complete piece, and then I've started welding it up. As you can see, I've built up the welds so I can grind them back and try and make this thing actually look legit. Like I said before, I want to make this look standard. That's the goal. And you know what? After welding it, grinding it, getting it right, the end product looked amazing. So as you can see here, I'm bolting up, getting ready to mark it with a pen so I can put in a nut insert. Now I'm doing something a bit different. I'm actually doing the nut insert in reverse. And this way, it's not going to interfere with the tyre when he's out on the four-wheel drive track. The tyre will be able to move, and there's going to be no nut or bolt there. So put it in reverse, and that's going to clean it up really nice. Chuck some washers on, and I think the end result looks really good.
Now the next thing we're going to do is get the battery tray done. So we are going a smaller battery. Hence, we need a smaller battery tray because the intercooler piping is here. We had to cut that battery tray up. So that's what we're doing next. Let's get to it.
Now I want to say thank you to Ben for cutting this up. So as you can see, what we're doing is we're using the first bit to chuck in, bolt up, and then we're going to chuck that battery on top. And the bit that we have to modify, I'm going to chuck in first so you can actually see the difference of room that we got. I'm using the old tape measure, and we're going to work out how much distance we got there, and it looks like we are sitting around 75 millimeters. So there you go, a 3-inch gap. So I'm going to ditch the tape measure, and we're going to go to an old square, and the reason why I like to use these is it just makes everything a lot more straighter. So we're going to get some sheet metal, which I found. It's about 0.7 millimeters, and we're going to tack that and then weld it up properly once I'm happy with the design. So a bit of backwards and forwards trying to get this right, but as you can see, you just keep going until you are happy. For example, this one took me about half an hour to get right. So now we get to move on to the really fun stuff, joining this all together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to really focus on this battery tray, and as you can see, I just got the plain piece of metal, chucked it on, and I'm scribing it out with the pen because I want to take the same shape. So when I'm welding, I can weld it on that 90-degree angle. So this is a really easy thing to do with the TIG. You pretty much heat that top up until it's a pull, and then you zigzag from the bottom to the top, and you can actually join them together with the pull of metal. And that makes a really nice looking weld and quite strong. The next little bit I'm doing is the larger section, and I'm going to do the exact same thing and go weld that up, but I'm doing an inverted 90 degrees. So this is quite a hard weld. I always struggle with these, especially on metal, as I don't usually use metal with the TIG. But look, they come up pretty good. It took me a while to get it right, but once I'm happy with that, then I got to get all this stuff together and bolt it back in the car so I can get the two pieces where they're meant to be, and then chuck in a tack weld so I can finish off this piece.
And what I've decided to do, I've decided that I really want to keep that factory look. So I've drilled some holes in it and I am welding it with the TIG welder up so it looks like spot welds. And the last thing to do then is to give it a big clean with a wire wheel, get it all as nice as possible, and then chuck some paint over it and get it back in the position. So the last thing we're going to do for this project before we call it quits for the day is we're going to put on a cold air intake. Now Josh will have to put a snorkel on this and a box later on down the track, but this is just so he can drive around town and not have to worry about getting any dust in his engine. So as you can see, there is not a lot of room, so we're going to be doing things a little bit different. We're going to be hard mounting the stainless steel onto that turbo, and I'm going to show you how to do it so you don't have to worry about dust. Let's get to it.
So now that I've got everything tied up, looking good, look at that. Last thing we got to do for tonight is slap on this cold air intake. So at the moment we're just using a cheap filter just to get the little spot going, but eventually this will all be boxed up, so that's where it's going to sit. Look at that. So if Josh goes racing, he can take his headlight out and let that cold air get right into that engine. So the last thing I'm going to do to get this 100% is get this in the right position and weld it on.
So the idea of this is as follows. As you can see on my diagram, what we're going to do is we're going to put this clamp on the outside of the actual tubing, and when we clamp down we have 2 points of seal, and that should eliminate any dust, dirt or anything like that getting into that turbo. If you guys see a fault with it, please let me know. I would love to tickle your brain about it. But that's what we're doing for now, and as you can see it bolts up really nice once we've finished welding it up.
Now I can already hear the comments coming about this one, but that, and I mean that is truly stuck on. Now I know what you're thinking, that's a metal on metal seal, won't fine dust get through that sort of stuff. I mean we are talking super fine dust to try get anywhere near that. And look, if Josh doesn't like it, what he can do is he can put a bit of silicone on there, 2 clamps, and there you go. But I mean that is so solid, not going anywhere, and I think personally that looks a lot better. But I'd love to hear what you think. Now on the next episode, Josh is coming down from Perth and we are legit finishing everything back on, putting the hood back on, putting the front bumpers back on, indicators, everything, getting it all ready, every single nut and bolt retying, make sure everything's happy, coolant in, and we will start it up and actually hear what this thing finally sounds like. If we get time, we're going to also try and do the exhaust, but the major thing is to try and get everything here all tidy up and ready to go. So the next one's going to be a big one because there is a couple of things that I'm not happy with that we need to fix up. But yeah, we are definitely almost finished on this, and it's been pretty much 1 year in the making. I cannot wait to see this thing hit the dyno and make some numbers and make some boosts. I just can't wait to hear it. Just like a lot of you. So if you like what you've been watching and you want to see this thing start up, please subscribe. It helps us out, supports us, and means we can keep doing awesome stuff like this. Well, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.